Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Squeak, and we have got a lot to talk about. This week, Chinese officials scored a slam dunk when arresting members of the UCLA basketball team on charges of shoplifting. Chaos breaks out as GOP and Democratic senators swap rhetoric on taxpayer time. The sexual assault epidemic hits the campaign trail for one Senate hopeful in Alabama. And the left, yet again, tries to impeach President Trump for being President Trump. Yeah. All this and more this week on the Squeakly Report. We, the American people, are at war. How many rich cigar-chomping megalomaniac health insurance CEOs doubling their profits? How many people have to die before we're willing to admit that we have a problem here? My name is Squeak Attack. Get used to me. I'll try not to flip my lid too much. Basketball. A sport that makes sense. You know, unlike some sports that people have already tried to kill me over. Last week, LaAngelo Ball, Cody Riley, and Jalen Hill, freshmen at UCLA and players on their basketball team, were dismissed from the team after an incident that occurred during President Trump's diplomacy tour of Asia. They went and stole Louis Vuitton sunglasses, and probably not even authentic ones at that, an infraction that could have resulted in 3 years of prison time or more, as well as a hefty fine. So, President Trump spoke directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping about the matter, and while Xi was quick to point out that theft charges can carry up to a decade sentence in the People's Republic, Trump was able to negotiate their release back to the States with what appeared to be little effort. So remember how I said that Trump and Xi hit it off last week? Apparently well enough that this didn't sour their relationship, and that's a good thing. Again, the president being on good terms with other world leaders, regardless of how shady or unkind they may appear to be compared to Western standards, that's a good thing. But talk about ignorance on the part of the players. I mean, seriously, I know China's not as bad as North Korea in terms of treatment of foreigners, but you have to wonder if these idiots even bother to read up on the country they're visiting, a country where the mass media, which is all state-run, by the way, goes out of its way to incriminate any Westerner that they can get their hands on. I also have to wonder why they, as well as Georgia Tech, were going to be playing a match in China literally on the other side of the world. I mean, seriously, it's $35 to $60 grand a year at UCLA. Talk about bloated, am I right? Well, at least their time in college so far has taught these degenerates one thing: don't steal. I mean, most of us knew that since kindergarten or earlier, but that's irrelevant. College has for once proven itself to be something other than a waste of time and money. Good on you, UCLA. You taught these kids how to suck less. And then each of these guys was required to issue a statement of thanks and apology to President Trump himself. Oh, you have to wonder how much that hurt them. I mean, let's face it. They're young, black college kids in California. My money's on Clinton as their mother's choice for president in 2016. They are most likely at that school on scholarship money and nothing else. They could have found someone equally talented but of a deeper moral compass than these guys and given that money to them. If I dig out my old grade books, I'm sure I could find at least 3 much more deserving names. If you're hearing this, LeJour, log onto your Edmodo account and say, hey, 35 grand a year, geez. I spent less than that on my entire undergraduate education and certification exams. Unbelievable. And now we see why. Because they're sending their basketball players to the other side of the freaking world. All right, time to get down to the dirty. Here at the Squeakly Report laundromat, where your sheets come in filthy and we fill them with holes. Jeff Sessions left a hole in the Senate when he was appointed as Attorney General, and currently the forerunners in the campaign for that seat are Democrat Doug Jones and Republican Roy Moore. For those of you living under a rock, bring some sunglasses. Don't steal them from a fake Louis Vuitton store, because we're about to shed some light on yet another sex scandal. Moore has been accused by at least 8 women of sexual misconduct, including several who were underage at the time. As is expected, he is denying these allegations. Seems like a cut and dry case, right? He did some dirty and is going to pay the price for it by probably losing the race, in which he is believed to be down 8 points to Jones. Unfortunately, in politics, nothing can be that simple. It makes sense that the left wants him to drop out of the race. Were he out, his replacement on the GOP ticket wouldn't have enough time to garner the support needed to win over any of Jones' voters, and he would have to maintain not only Moore's projected 42%, but also shift enough support away from Jones and the third-party candidates in order to offset this. In other words, without Moore in the race, it would be a guaranteed win for Jones. However, what they're pushing for is a violation of American ethics. One particular part of our legal code that seems to get overlooked more and more these days, the presumption of innocence, aka being innocent until proven guilty. Not the other way around. I will admit that on this show, we pass judgment all the time, but guess what? I'm not a federal judge, and I'm not voting for anyone based on allegations. See, I'm not a judge, and I'm not on the jury in any case involving Moore, So I can call him a deviant and a liar all I want. However, he should not be required, not even pressured, to leave the race over allegations until a jury of 12 of his peers, under a presiding federal judge, determines that he is indeed guilty of sexual misconduct. I wouldn't vote for him, but it's not my place to demand he do anything without having been determined to be 100% guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt, per federal ruling. President Trump has come under fire for refusing to openly condemn Moore for his actions, but you know what? Trump is 100% right in doing this. People want Trump to react. They want him to do what he did when he called out those basketball players. The difference here is that they were caught doing something illegal in the act by authorities who simply refused to press charges, and they admitted guilt to said authorities, waiving their need of a trial. Whereas Moore was not caught in the act. He was simply accused years after the fact in some cases of doing something which he denies. They're saying it's because Trump doesn't want to lose another GOP Senate seat, and that may be somewhat true. However, accusing Moore or advising him to give this race up would not only be a civil liability to the president, who could very well be sued as a result, but would also reflect poorly on him to anybody who wishes to uphold the sanctity of the presumption of innocence and, by extension, the entire U.S. Constitution. In other words, his voter base. Honestly, though, I don't think Moore should drop out of the race. I'm sure he is in fact guilty of these charges, as well as possibly many other crimes, but it's in the hands of the citizens of the state of Alabama to decide if he is fit to serve as their senator in Washington or not. Their votes against him, the probably hundreds of thousands of people instead endorsing Jones and the third-party candidates, should be the determining factor in his success, or rather inevitable failure, from here on out. That's what it means to live in a republic, people. We control our Congress with our ballot machines, and we need to remember that going into these next few years of congressional elections. We have the power. We can get people like John McCain out of the Senate. We can get rid of the lazy, apathetic masses in Washington and replace them with younger, smarter, more able-bodied people. It's not hard. You just got to vote. Now, on the other end of the political spectrum, we have Minnesota Senator Al Franken. It's amazing how differently people are treating this case from Moore's. According to CNN, Trump remained silent on Moore, which a guy in his living room and his audience on iTunes have already established was the appropriate extent of his involvement in the case, but has been blasting Franken, including calling him Frankenstein, having spelled Stein incorrectly. Derp, sorry, Mr. President, what can I say? I'm a teacher. I have to correct grammar. But also, in the words of our president, and to think that just last week he was lecturing anyone who would listen about sexual harassment and respect for women. Franken has even claimed to have drugged and raped a female journalist, Leslie Stahl, which he then went on to deny in a recent memoir. CNN also decided not to believe Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who stated that the president believes that if the allegations against Moore are true, that he should step aside if the allegations are true, mind you, which again is exactly as it should be from a legal and civil perspective. But why is Trump able to attack Franken on Twitter? Well, let's play a little game. I'm going to sum up the accusations against Franken in 3 sentences. See how long it takes for you to realize the key differences in the accusations against Moore and Franken. In 1995, Franken was recorded joking about raping Leslie Stahl, and there are half a dozen pictures of the senator inappropriately touching a sleeping sports anchor back in 2006. There was also an accusation that he Frenched her without her consent. He admits that he should not have done any of that. Please tell me you got less than halfway through the first sentence before the light bulb came on. Proof. There it is. We have recordings, photo evidence, and Franken's own admission of guilt. That's why Trump bears no liability in his accusations of Franken, because we have proof that everything Franken was accused of is 100% true. Therefore, Franken should be forced to step down. We shouldn't even need to burden the taxpayers with a lengthy series of trials on this one. He admitted his guilt and is now hoping that his party affiliations and history as an entertainer will get him off the hook. Don't let him off the hook, people. Corey Feldman threw down another name last week, and at this point, I really don't know why we're even covering this malarkey. Alfie Hoffman. Guy doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page. Don't even bother looking him up on IMDb. You're better off just assuming he doesn't exist. You get further accusing the late Joey Vento of something. At least people knew who he was. He was a restaurateur. He owned a cheesesteak shop in Philadelphia. Feldman is starting to crack now. His story's cracking. His facade is cracking. It's all about to come crashing down around him. And the sad part is, he's already suckered almost $250,000 out of people. Fun fact, the word gullible isn't actually in the dictionary. Go look it up right now. He has enough money to make a documentary exceeding the quality of, again, I think now the de facto standard in exposure films, The Red Pill. Though the meter has effectively frozen over at this point. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio and Orrin Hatch of Utah. Geez, why don't these guys have normal names? Maybe these were common names way back when, along with the likes of Hezekiah, Nefertiti, and Pterodactyl. Yeah, you know you're too old when nobody alive remembers a time when your name even existed. These guys, a Democrat and a Republican respectively, traded some choice words last week, with Brown accusing the GOP proposed tax plan reform strategy of being not for the middle class and only having big business interests in mind. Newsflash, Brown. Big businesses employ the middle class. You may have a moral bias against major corporations, but those companies are a necessary evil at this point. Or you can take the glass half full approach like an adult and admit that the rise of big businesses has done nothing but open opportunities for both the consumer and the working class as a whole if you choose. But Brown instead spent the entirety of their meeting throwing rhetorical grenades at Hatch's feet, which put the fierce senator on the defensive and poised him for some much-needed counterattacks. Not bad for the third oldest currently serving senator. Hatch, of course, comes from a middle-class family. It worked hard for 83 years to amass his irrelevant $5 million net worth. Or at least as hard as a congressman can work, but you get the idea. The guy danced. And holy crap, it was actually pretty good. But what was truly amazing was that Hatch, possibly out of fear of being exposed as a swamp critter, flat out said both congressional parties need to work together and that maybe they'd get something done. Brown spent the entire meeting spouting rhetorical nonsense, and after grasping at straws like Chip and the old fallacy that the GOP is all about the rich and getting richer, it turns out, though, the rich getting richer has a trickle effect, which in turn benefits everyone below them. Wealth is not some pie sitting on the table with everyone fighting for a slice, people. It's a countertop full of ingredients waiting to be baked into any number of pies if you know what you're doing. And the allegedly greedy old conservatives are the ones writing the recipe cards for everyone else. See, to Brown, it's all about party alignment. That's what matters. But this is all true. Congress needs to stop worrying about party affiliation and fight to get something done. That's the takeaway from every story here today. Moore gets slammed for sexual assault because he's a conservative. Franken gets passed because he's liberal. Brown refuses to work with Hatch or even listen to what he has to say because he's a bigoted, typical leftist pansy, despite Hatch being overall a benefactor in this scenario. Another example we've covered on the show in the past, Hillary Clinton signed off on the Uranium One deal for personal profit, and that's alright, but Trump, a global mogul, possibly having some commercial ties to Russian companies is a major issue. It's time, people. We're finally going to do it. We're going to talk about Russia. The Russian collusion rumors have been going on since long before the ballots were tallied, with both sides regularly accusing the other of having some ties to Russia, which have impacted the other's ability to get elected. What's interesting, though, is that the only things President Trump might have had something to do with involving Russian commerce would be a few business deals from his personal company and an overzealous lawyer trying to cut a deal with his son. That's it. People are talking about sanctions. What sanctions? I'm pretty sure there aren't any sanctions to do with business with the Kremlin for private American citizens or public companies. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Lukoil gas stations still in operation. The only major sanctions I could find involve the tech industry, and it really only applies to technology used by the military. In other words, casual business with Russia isn't collusion, it's business. I think Trump put it best himself. Having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. As he says, I want to solve North Korea, Syria, Ukraine, terrorism, and Russia can greatly help. The Russians aren't the ideal ally. Ideal allies would be countries like Poland, South Korea, Switzerland, etc. Russia's a very different, seemingly backwards place compared to the rest of the first world. Their laws are brutal, their leadership is crooked, and their elections are a farce. However, would you folks at home rather live in a world where foreign nuclear powers hated us and wanted to wage war with us, or were on our side in defending the downtrodden members of our global society? Russian injustice is the least of our worries as a world at large at this point. Meanwhile, we still face the fact that his accusers, one of whom is DNC crony Donna Brazil, have all but admitted that everything he was accused of having done in the wrong with regards to the Russian probe were in turn committed by DNC bigwigs. Uranium One? How do you justify that? Trump has a vodka deal 10 years ago, and he tried to build some hotels. Hillary Clinton sold uranium, which is used to make explosives, and pocketed the profits for herself. Why do you think Putin was so excited about Obama having been elected in 2012? Because Obama and Clinton were in cahoots. Obama was practically a derpy lapdog wrench in Clinton's grand scheme, forcing her to postpone her presidential bid until she ran clean out of juice. But the fact of the matter is, they're still working together on this one. And yeah, Obama, the first president we've ever had to flat out attack his successor. Bush didn't attack Obama, despite disagreeing on pretty much everything. Clinton never went after Bush. Other Bush never went after Clinton. What gives Obama the right to campaign? He's not even running for office anymore. What gives him the right to campaign against President Trump? Just to undermine his authority as our leader. Oh, but here's something that the left loves throwing around. Putin likes Trump. Good. Again, nothing wrong with foreign leaders having respect for our president. Xi likes Trump. Abe is starting to like Trump. Tron likes Trump. Duterte, as sick a man as he is, he probably still has some respect for Trump. People having respect for us is a good thing. But doesn't that prove collusion? Well, that or just that Putin and Trump get along on a personal level and knew each other from prior engagements. Joseph Stalin and FDR were best friends back in the day. See, when it comes to partisan politics, Putin's completely innocent, having no experience with political competition. However, he does give us a different perspective on our own electoral system as a result, something most Arizonans fail to see every 6 years when they re-elect John McCain. The Russians understand politics on a level we don't because they don't have to deal with partisan ties. Even the Washington Post, one of the most anti-Trump publications out there, admits that things like the ongoing Mueller investigation don't prove anything. When liberal news sites tell you the Russian boogeyman is bullshit, you have no reason to believe that crap. Christopher Steele, a British spy and the progenitor of the original Russian dossier back in 2016, has all but proven only the Clintons have ties between the Kremlin and the US election. But leftist media won't let this die. No proof of collusion on the president's part whatsoever. Get over it, whiners. You lost the election. Move on. All right, tax plan time. Oh, this is going to be fun. Before we get into our big story this week, let's talk about the actual tax plan that could very well seal the deal in terms of whether Trump is a successful or unsuccessful president overall. The GOP tax plan Senator Hatch was talking about, remember that new tax plan? Everyone breaks even, with the exception of those on the cusp of the literal 1%, such as doctors, uptown lawyers, and small-time corporate executives, will experience a slight tax increase about 2%. Everyone else is going to be fine, no changes. Those on the high end of the middle class get about a 3% tax break. Now for the fun part. The tax rate drops from 15 to 12% for any household earning less than 90 grand a year. Anyone earning less than 19 grand, on the other hand, does experience a slight 2% increase. This would be a full-time worker earning under $10 an hour, which is decidedly uncommon in low-end industries for working-class adults. Even temp agencies don't pay that little. So the kid dropping your fries has to pay a bit more in taxes. Don't worry, I guarantee you, he's not even going to notice. There's a new child tax deduction. Good. This means parents of more than one child will pay less in taxes. They propose to eliminate state and local tax deductions. This means blue states where taxes are higher lose deductions. Aw, boo-hoo. Seems bad short term, right? But in the long run, it may very well help voters make smart choices when it comes to who they're going to elect as their leaders. I'm not saying this is just or fair, but if you live in a state that taxes you at a higher rate than the national average, you need to fix your government at the local level, not force the feds to bail you out with tax breaks. Tax breaks for small businesses? Again, that's a good thing. There's no reason some small businesses should be required to pay taxes almost 50% higher rate than the national average. Provisions are outlined to keep larger businesses from attempting to qualify as smaller pass-through businesses, of course. Besides, they want to lower the tax rate overall for major corporations anyway by roughly 7%. Senator Brown flipped at the idea of rich executives pocketing more money, but Hatch was right. See, tax breaks at the corporate level create jobs. Again, with the pie people, you can waste your life fighting for a slice of someone else's plate, or you can watch the baker and learn how to make your own. And finally, our big story this week calls for impeachment of the president yet again. They're not much louder or more deeply rooted than before, aside from the fact that there's now an officially sanctioned Google ad for it, and a few nobodies who haven't had their share of spotlight this year proposing bogus articles demanding that our electoral process be overturned. Oh, you guys still butthurt that Clinton didn't get elected? You want your Fiji water and your organic granola bar? Yeah, do you need your safe space? Huh? I thought you guys were adults. Some of you are 3 times my age. Grow up. I was on a podcast a while back with The Leaping Frog in which I outlined the impeachment process step by step. Just to review in case you didn't hear that podcast, it starts with the House Judiciary Committee, who has to decide to pursue impeachment as an option, and they file their articles of impeachment or a list of allegations, and if any single article receives a majority vote on the part of the entire House, the president is impeached. This happened twice in our history, with Andrew Johnson, in which the Senate took his side, and with Bill Clinton, in which, again, he got acquitted by the Senate. And that's the next step. The Senate holds a formal trial. After the trial, the entire Senate votes, and a majority vote results in removal from office. Articles can be fired over almost anything, from felony offenses to the umbrella categories of treason or abuse of power. Let's read and break down the allegations against our president, because, oh boy, you guys are going to love these. Obstruction of justice, including the firing of James Comey. Insert laugh track here. He was proven 100% innocent in regards to the Russian probe. What more do you need? Number 2, violation of Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Basically, they allege that Trump tried to pass laws in areas and domains outside of his authority. No explanation of what specifically this entails, so we probably don't have to worry about this one. Number 3, violation of Article 2, Section 1. Trump can serve up to 2 4-year terms and is going to be elected alongside Vice President Pence as deemed fit by the Electoral College. He got 306 votes, way more than Clinton's 232. Again, complete another crap. Next article. Undermining the independence of the federal judiciary and rule of law. What, because he appointed a judge to the Supreme Court? This is the big one. Undermining the First Amendment. Yet again, insert laugh track. The First Amendment. The government can't violate your public right to expression. Why? The fake news debacle. The failing New York Times and Wall Street Journal, as well as many other news outlets, spent their entire election season slandering Trump, accepting money from the DNC in exchange for a positive message, and lying to the American people. How is it constitutional in any way when the mass media prevents smaller media outlets from having a voice, when a single collusive entity controls the flow of all information? Oh, but he was critical of channels and op-eds that don't even stick to facts anymore, slandering him. No mention of the articles, of course, about how people voted for Trump because he called the mainstream media out on their lies. See, I'm a guy with a microphone and a mattress pad tacked to his wall, operating out of a house in an undisclosed part of rural PA. My show's a biased op-ed which uses hard numbers to back my mouth-foaming, cockeyed claims. I'm not CNN. Now look at someone like Mark Levin. He's got years of experience on most people at CNN, certainly way more experience than me. He operates an independent news network, effectively the news equivalent of Coffee Stain Studios, or what Netflix was doing 5 years ago when they first started their own original programming. And all the shows now in his network, including multiple comedy shows, have proven themselves to consistently maintain a higher level of intellectual integrity than CNN, which anybody unfamiliar with as a news outlet would probably classify as nothing more than an editorial at this point. Facts don't matter to CNN. Trump's election was a boon for independent media because it woke people up. It got people up and outside so they could take a look at the world at large. Compare that to the DNC-linked crony companies like Facebook, Google, Twitter, Amazon, etc., who are actively suppressing ideas they disagree with. Why are these not considered public utilities nowadays? Why are they silencing dissenting opinions and denying the existence of contrary thought? Let's touch on this a moment. Let's explore the way that these companies operate. See, it's okay if PepsiCo, for example, does something boneheaded like attacking Trump supporters or putting cancer-causing Splenda in their non-diet beverages, because we have other options. We have Coke as well as A-Treat, which I actually really like. I like A-Treat. It's good. Good stuff. You don't like Subway putting yoga mat in their bread? Go to Wawa or Jimmy John's instead. You have choices. You have options. However, companies like Google and Facebook have something these companies don't have: totalitarian ubiquity. There's no one competing with Facebook. Not even Twitter is in competition with Facebook anymore. There's no viable alternative to YouTube. If you want to interact with your fans and have a discussion group, good luck doing so without current social media giants. If you ask me, therefore, social media should be regulated like a public utility. The only reason your First Amendment rights don't apply on Facebook is because it's a private company. However, there's nowhere else to go with said ideas. It's this ubiquity that I think should serve as an exception to the current model of freedom of speech and private restrictions of the like. After all, Facebook is a utility that is 100% public. Anybody can see it. Doesn't that mean that it's technically a public platform? Shouldn't Facebook in particular, therefore, be considered a place where, yes, the First Amendment, as specifically stated, does apply? I mean, for crying out loud, Facebook can be used as evidence in the court of law against you if you threaten somebody on there and that person turns up missing a couple days later. So why doesn't Facebook have to hold every other segment of the First Amendment, huh? YouTube, you don't even need an account to look at YouTube. You can watch YouTube videos anywhere. Again, you should have the right to post whatever you want on YouTube, and as long as it's not threatening to hurt anyone, you should be good to go. But no, they want complete control. Facebook is no different than CNN at this point. People are waking up to the BS surrounding it but are being silenced, and no private company should have that level of control over people who in many cases are forced to depend on it because they don't have any other choice in the matter. Alright, bit of a tangent. Those articles of impeachment against President Trump, as well as a healthy rant about exactly the kind of crap Trump's been fighting against in our country's culture. With the GOP majority in the House, Trump's not going anywhere though. Don't sweat it. Even if the House would agree to it, the Senate would just laugh. Don't think for a moment GOP lapdogs would try anything funny though, because unlike President Trump, the guy who would take his place isn't someone they can wage such an ideological war with. If the Senate actually did vote against Trump, I guarantee none of them would be in office anymore by 2022, no question. They're a bunch of spoiled brats on the left. They think they can get away with whatever they want because they're so used to Mama Obama letting them have candy for dinner to get back at Daddy GOP for years of an unfulfilled marriage. You ever notice that? A lot of divorced parents, they'll use the kids as a weapon against the other parent. That's exactly what the left is doing right now. The next thing Congress should do is employ a squad of people to run around with ping pong paddles and leather slippers to throw those whiny cucks over their knees, because that's what the American people need at this point. A good spanking. What did they think would happen if Trump were impeached and subsequently removed from office? Clinton would not become president. Obama's not coming back. That itself would be a gross violation of the aforementioned Article 2, Section 1. You know what actually would happen if Trump were impeached? Mike Pence would take over as president for the next 3 years, then face the prospect of 2 re-elections, effectively making him our possible president until 2024. Hey, Democrats, you really want that? You know, Trump was the first president elected who already supported gay marriage protection before taking office. Obama didn't start supporting that until the end of his presidency, and Clinton has always been against it. She's a dirty liar. We're ever on record stating that marriage is supposed to be between a man and a woman. You can't change that belief pattern. That doesn't work that way. Trump announced his support long before either of them. Meanwhile, they just waited until, hey, look, we can get votes if we support this agenda. Why am I bringing this up? Because Pence is a notorious proponent of conversion therapy. We're not here to debate conversion therapy. We'll save that for a show during a slower news week. But the gist of it is that it medically induces heterosexual feelings in homosexual individuals. Do you really want a guy who supports that in the highest office in the land? I mean, I honestly think that's irrelevant. But that would upset a lot of people. So, anybody on the left hearing this? Impeach Trump if you want Pence to take over. And you know something? There are going to be big changes in our culture at large with Pence as president. No. Wait a minute. The answer was right here in front of us all along, under our noses all this time. Yeah, go ahead, remove Trump from office. This is perfect. I know what you're thinking. I've just lost my mind, right? Just hear me out. Trump's a firebrand who rustles GOP Jimmies 24/7, and everybody loves him for it. Pence is his diplomatic right hand, and while Trump may be more persuasive to the American people as a whole, Pence will be more effective before Congress. People would vote for him because he has ties to Trump. In turn, Pence can actually get something done because he's not going to butt heads with Congress. He's going to tell it to them like it is and then focus on the solution. So the coup de grace, if Trump were removed from office, Pence would spend his potential 11-year presidency with Trump in some form of public office. He would appoint him as Secretary of the State or something like that. Effectively, that means Trump would be in control for 4 extra years. In other words, people, if Trump is removed from office here and now, he spends the next 11 years calling the shots for the country. Therefore, a vote for Trump impeachment is a vote for over a decade more Trump, with Pence as the figurehead. Beautiful. I'm not even making this up. Impeach the president. Anything you do to attack Trump, in case you haven't figured it out, only makes him stronger. Removing him from office would make him unstoppable as a political force. Like I said, B-E-A-beautiful. It's been a great week for the truth, everyone. Be seeing ya. Like what you heard, hate what you heard, want to see me dead? Follow me on Twitter at Squeak_Attack and join our Squeak Attack feed Facebook group and fan page. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, leave a comment on the blog, and as always, have a good day.